let's get started to welcome Erika Council. She is a baker, food writer, recipe developer, food photographer, educator, and the owner, chef of Bomb Biscuits. She is the creator of the website Southern Souffle, the author of Still We Rise, a love letter to the Southern Biscuit with over 70 sweet and savory recipes. She's also contributed to several other cookbooks, including Feed the Resistance by Julia Turshen, Soul by Todd Richards, who will be here later, Sunday Suppers by Cynthia Grubart, who is a contributor to the HAC's Food and Dining, as well as Beyond the Plate. Her restaurant, Bomb Biscuits, was among the 50 restaurants across the country named to the 2023 New York Times restaurant list, as well as the inaugural Atlanta Michelin Guide's list of Bib Gourmand restaurants. She was among this year's James Beard Award semifinalists in the Best Chef Southeast category. But there's more. And she was announced in September, just last month, as one of the 13 chefs named to Food and Wine's 2024 Best New Chefs in America. Yes. So she's also been featured in Savory, Food 52, The Kitchen Essence, HuffPost, and so many others. So please welcome Atlanta's own Erika Council.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounded amazing just now. I just need you to follow me around.
Okay, I'll do it. As long as you feed me biscuits.
I was the dishwasher because one of our dishwashers called out, so it's always glamorous. Always glamorous.
Okay, so today we are here because of biscuits, and I know you're going to be preparing some, so let folks know what you're going to be making, and then we'll get started chatting about biscuits and books and restaurants and the whole shebang.
Awesome. So I'm making cheddar jalapeno biscuits. They're probably, outside of the plain buttermilk biscuits, we probably sell the most of these at the restaurant. I think this week we're at like 2,500.
Wow. Raise your hand if you've been to Bomb Biscuits before.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your experience. Yeah. So that's what we'll be making. Cheddar jalapeno. You can make them at home. They're very, very good. So.
And one thing to point out, especially to those of us who aspire to be good biscuit makers, I do since I moved to the South, but I have still a ways to go. Yeah. My favorite is Jolene Black's buttermilk biscuits because they only take 2 ingredients.
Yeah, which is self-rising flour.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the heavy cream.
Yeah.
Whipping cream. But she chose the jalapeno cheddar biscuits, she told me, because initially she was going to cook something else. She knew she was going to be running here from the restaurant, and this one would be easy to make.
Yeah, and then I could bring some that were already made. I was going to fry some biscuits for you, but I was like, man. Yeah, what was I thinking? But they're in the book. If you get it, they're very easy to make. They're actually the ones my grandma, on my mom's side, not the one at the restaurant. The kids never really got the nice biscuits. They were for the preacher and for the adults. So like if there was like leftover biscuit dough or something, she would add more milk to it, drop it in the fryer with the chicken, roll it in cinnamon and sugar, and that's what we got to eat. You know, even though the nice biscuits looked great, I was probably a teenager before I actually got to sit at the table and eat the real biscuit, as we called it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to serve these at my restaurant. And now adults order them more than children, so take that, Grandma.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us what the ingredients you have, how we're going to get started here.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you about self-rising flour. That's a common thing people use, white lily. I didn't grow up using self-rising flour. The best biscuits I ever had were made with flour from Piggly Wiggly. And there was no butter because butter was expensive. So we had lard or Crisco, or evaporated milk because buttermilk was sometimes hard to find. But now I use, mostly at the restaurant, we use Sir Galahad, which is King Arthur. It's a great flour. It's very sturdy. Because we pile, if you've been to Bomb Biscuits, we pile a lot of stuff on the biscuit to where it's falling apart. So like, in order for it to be sturdy, you need a sturdier flour. And to me, all-purpose flour just kind of gives you that good base for a biscuit. So we're starting off with, look at the recipe. You know why? Because I don't ever look at recipes. What I make, I'm gonna be honest. We're gonna be honest with each other today. So just make sure you get it right. So we got 2.5 cups of flour. We've got our baking powder. This is so neat in these containers.
And tidy, I know, don't you? I wish somebody would do this for me when I cook at home.
No, it's not on the floor or anything. So we've got your, make sure you have a whisk. I'll explain that in a minute. Got your baking powder, put that in there like that. Baking soda, a little sprinkle, and salt. This is kosher salt. So I will say in my book, a lot of people like, I used the salt and it was too salty. So every salt is different. If you're using iodized salt, it's not going to be the same measurement as the kosher salt. For my book, I use diamond crystal. And I also like seasoning. Some of my biscuits do have a little salt in them. If you don't like that after you've made it, you can scale it back, but they're going to be kind of bland. But I'm not going to talk about it, not to your face. But you want to make sure you have a whisk. This one is kind of sturdy. If you have one that's a little smaller and it's got like thinner, what do you call these things? Jail cell things. But you want to make sure, and the reason I say that is because you always want to make sure that your baking powder and your baking soda and your salt are all kind of whisked through. If you have a sifter and you're fancy at home, put it in your sifter and spend 15 minutes sifting. Or you can use a whisk and just make sure it's all kind of incorporated. And I say that because one of the ways I test the people who come, I get a lot of people come to the restaurant. So I want, oh yeah, I can be a baker, I can come help you. I want to work for you, but I really want to know how to make biscuits. I always test them. I give them, the base recipe when they come in. I see where they go from there. So it's a couple of things. I need to see you whisk the flour. I need to see you pick up a bench scraper. It's just some things you can tell someone's a baker if they're coming to steal your recipes. So when I don't see them use a whisk, or I don't see them like really look through the flour, I know a couple of things. Because if you make biscuits, or anything really, and you don't whisk or sift the ingredients, once you folded them out, added the buttermilk, whatever else you're going to add, and you bake them, and you take a bite of that biscuit, and there's a huge pocket of baking soda, you want to just die. So you always make sure that you just can't see any of the baking powder or baking soda or salt. That means it's very well incorporated.
Tell us a little bit about how you came to know these biscuit necessary pieces of information. Go back for especially folks who just don't know your background and your history.
Yeah.
Where this knowledge comes from.
So two people mainly. My mom's mom, Geraldine Dort, she's from Goldsboro, North Carolina. She was an educator. Yeah, okay, you're from the area? We love it. We love it. So we had hogs and all that, And so she was your, top-notch church lady, like ran the church kitchen like a Michelin restaurant. So don't bring that cake in a square pan because it's a cake and not a casserole. And just, I grew up in the church, honestly, and I just grew up around my grandma and all these other women who, a few men, but mainly women, who would run this church kitchen like you had never seen in your life. And it was just plates over here, everything was, and then on first Sundays, everything was china. They had silverware, glass cups, the preacher's table. If the bishop was visiting, the children didn't even get to come. Everything was just beautiful, but everyone in that kitchen could cook. Of course, they couldn't cook as good as my granny, but according to her. But I just remember how much, so when you come in that Sunday, everybody, hey, Miss, I can call out her name, hey, Miss Menegal, hey, Miss Adams, hey, it just was like, wow, I love your lemon cake. And I just wanted to grow up and people to feel that way about me. So one of the things I always saw was everyone knew how to make biscuits. And the ones who couldn't make biscuits never really passed the muster of the church kitchen. They were rolling silverware or something like that. I didn't want to be that person. So I always just paid close attention to what they did and just, and just growing up in that field. And on my dad's side, my grandmother did. Erika Council had a restaurant in Chapel Hill. It's still there, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, called Mama Dip's Kitchen. And thank you. And for those of y'all who know her, you can't cook and not be good at it. This is your grandma and your food is terrible? No. So I said, there's a couple of things I had to perfect in life. Biscuits, cornbread, fried chicken, country fried steak, which I don't back at the restaurant now, but I probably should. Baking cakes. It was just a little laundry list, but biscuits were just high on the. So as I got older, I went to college for software engineering because I wasn't going to open a restaurant. Because I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be angry, but here I am. You know, and that's what I bore witness to as a kid, teenager, when I had to spend time with my grandma. We worked at a restaurant for free. She didn't pay us. So I was like, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go to college, went to North Carolina A&T State University, one of the best HBCUs in the country. All right, we're family. I love it. That's why you're sitting right there. And you know, I was like, I'm gonna work in corporate America because that's so much better. In IT at that, and I just spent 15 years doing that, but I always was working on things. Like I would always see like new recipes and, you know, and all the food thing more so came about. My mom's mom developed dementia I don't know, like, it was like a 15-year progression. And she started to lose a lot of their memories. This is the church kitchen lady. And I just would write them down and the stories along with the recipes. And I just knew to myself, this is gonna be something I perfected. And it just kind of grew organically from there. You know, and as I started working in this industry and doing festivals, it's always fascinating to watch chefs. Right, you know, who are so used to fancy equipment and things like that. Like this one girl couldn't find the right buttermilk at this one. I thought she was gonna lose her mind. She was just, you know, they didn't have a buttermilk. They didn't have it. Like, what am I supposed to do? How am I gonna make this? And I said, there's like some whole milk in the refrigerator. And she turned to me and she was like, you must not make biscuits. I was like, girl. So like, it was just important for me to be able to express to y'all, the stuff that they tell you have to make biscuits is not true. So you know you need flour. If you don't have buttermilk, it's not gonna be the end of the day. I've had biscuits with evaporated milk that were fabulous. Had biscuits made with powdered buttermilk and water. You know, if it's not the fancy buttermilk, you should get that. But if you can't get that, it's gonna be okay. And I just wanted to be able to express that everywhere I went. Because Grandma and them didn't have butter churned from ferries in Switzerland. We had, you know what I mean? We had Crisco, the blue can. That's how you knew if someone could cook. Like if you went to their house and they had a Crisco can, wasn't Crisco in it. But if it had bacon drippings, you was gonna eat there. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's okay. So that's how I am. I kind of went around. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, no, you answered it. You answered it. So, and also tell us a little bit the story about Bomb Biscuits and how that got started.
Yeah,
because you've come a long way in a very short time, though.
I lost my mind. That's really the top and bottom of that story. You know, again, I went into corporate America not knowing what I would think and just started I did a lot of IT development. I started working with Microsoft products. Then moved on to a system called Salesforce for any of my IT people here. You know, I'm one of the OGs from like 2007, was out in San Francisco trying to be cool. It wasn't cool. You know, and my husband is an SCP developer. He's very, very smart. And I was just like, wow, you're smart. You know, I'm not that smart. So, you know, it just got tiring. So I'd always try to find other things to do to kind of kill my time. So I started with the blog, obviously, and then that kind of opened up doors for me. Like I was always in this industry some way just because of the connection of my family's restaurant. So, and like biscuits just became my thing. I make other things, guys, I do. And so I would do events, did a couple of pop-up Sunday suppers at Kimball House with some friends of mine. And I met a very wonderful gentleman named Brian Furman. If you've ever had Brian Furman barbecue, but it was Bees Crackling Barbecue. And he came to one of my Sunday supper pop-ups and he said, you know what, I'm opening a restaurant here and I think you should come and do breakfast. So that kind of grew organically and we did one pop-up with the anticipation of maybe 100 people showing. We ended up making 1,000 biscuits. But it was just fried chicken, his country ham, gravy. We did cinnamon rolls, and it just grew from there. We did that a couple of times a month until unfortunately his restaurant burned down. But at that point, we were doing corporate catering things. So he would be like, hey, these people want to come. KPMG was ordering, you know, things like that. So cool, I kept doing that, but I was still working my job. Like, it's not really a 9 to 5. If you're IT consulting, you typically have to wait till people get off of the system. So it's like the other way, 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. So I would do my biscuit things in the morning, go home, and then just do IT work. And then the pandemic hit. And I got an email from, I can't even remember what the company was, but the guy sent me an email. He was like, I want to do a Zoom meeting with my team. And like, I had given them biscuits. Like, I had used to do quick catering for their team meets. He's like, do you mind dropping off some biscuits? Like, what would it take for you to drop some biscuits off at their house? And I remember my daughter was home from college, of course, because their colleges were shut down. And I turned to her, I was like, is this man crazy? I'm about to ride around Atlanta, drop off biscuits. Like, what do I look like? But my daughter, I have to give her the praise. Also Mary, Chef Mary, please turn around and look at her. She has been my support rock through this whole venture here. Thank y'all for giving her a round of applause. So we ventured into dropping off biscuits like a drug dealer on people's doorsteps. We would ride around Atlanta and just, you know, I thought it'd be a couple of people, and my daughter was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, because, you know, when you're 19, everything's easy. So, you know, I put it online, and which was even more crazy, and more people were saying, hey, yeah, deliver biscuits, and to the point to where we moved to a prep kitchen, Prep Atlanta, because it was so much. And then a friend of mine was like, you need to get a space. But I just was so firm in the idea I'm not opening a restaurant. Like, I was cemented in that spot. And so I went to this little spot, Irwin Street Market, 450 square feet. And we moved there. And I remember my husband thinking, like, he's saying to me, you can do it, it's gonna be fine. I was still working my IT job at night though, because I wasn't gonna let that go. Again, I didn't want to be poor. And we opened doors, and it just flew from there. We outgrew that in 6 months. We were right next to Glide Pizza, if y'all ever had their pizza, which is phenomenal. They moved to a bigger space, so we took over their 850 square foot spot. We outgrew that. Then the landlord, he came around and said, well, I've got a restaurant up the street. If you want to look at that. My husband was like, yeah, we're going to do that. And I was like, no, that's a real restaurant. Like, we're playing restaurant now at this little spot. So that's where we are now, and that's how it came to be 4 years later. This is my 4th year of brick and mortar.
That's so impressive. It's so impressive. Okay, no, you have to keep making.
You want me to keep moving?
Yeah,
I'm from the South. We have to stop and talk. We can't do multiple things at once. All right, so what we're going to do next is, what does the paper say?
Let's see.
We're going to grate in some butter.
I have to get out my readers.
We're going to grate in some butter. I'm using unsalted butter. I love doing this because every time I grate butter into something, I think about my grandma staring over my shoulder like, ooh, that's expensive. So
tell us about the grater. Do we need to use a grater if we're going to be making biscuits?
I say yes because I run hot. You know, the devil. And so I use this. So at my house, I have one that has several. This has 3 different grades, and I always use this side, and mainly because it makes these sheets here. And I just toss them in. I did not really snap them in like that, again, because my hands run hot, and you don't want your butter to completely melt into the flour. At the restaurant, we use it's so much. One batch of biscuits takes 36 pounds. 36, no. What is wrong with me? 3 pounds of butter. So we use a grater, like a food processor like that, and then take it out and toss it.
I gotcha.
But on this side, I mean, you can use this side right here too, but I like to use this because I like to see the little sheets of butter like that. If you have a knife and you're feeling very, you know, fancy, you can cut them very thin. But see how they're just.
And
like
how
that.
cold do you want your butter to be?
You want it to be cold, but to be honest with y'all, if it starts to break down, it's okay. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the end all of your biscuits. If you cut it in there and you see it starting to sort of, I don't know, disintegrate a little bit, just put it in the freezer for a couple of minutes, maybe 10, 15 minutes, then take it out. But a lot of people don't want to wait that long. Like, where the biscuits at? It's quick bread. You know what I mean? When I look at people's biscuits recipes, people be like, have you seen such a biscuit recipe? It's like an hour process. Like, no, that's not biscuits. That's brioche. So we're grating this in here. How much we're putting in here? We're putting in 1 cup. Okay, wow.
You're getting reacquainted with your recipe?
Yes.
Do you think that your IT background helps you with, I mean, it's very exacting sometimes baking, right? I mean, it is. I know your recipe you're giving to us in both weight and volume.
Yeah.
So do you think that your background actually lends itself to baking?
Yeah, I think for the engineering side of my mind, I want to know why people feel like it has to be done this way, and I want to completely take that apart and prove it incorrect. So I think that's kind of been one of the things when it comes to business. Also, the way I grew up, just people made biscuits. The touch of grace biscuits. None of that stuff was cold. They didn't use anything but their hands. Put the buttermilk in, and they shaped them that way. You had to have the touch of grace. I don't have that. I have that recipe in this book, but they don't look like my grandma did. But yeah, I think it does help me kind of put stuff in weights. And I put the weights there mainly because it helps you scale the recipe. So if you need to take this recipe and scale it, that's how many grams you need for the flour. And I also feel it's very important when you write a recipe or when you give a recipe, you need to know what butter they used, what salt they used, what flour they used, what buttermilk they used. Because you can have a recipe and you can go and get, what's another flour that's not as superior as King Arthur? I won't call anybody out. But like you can go and get another type of flour and it just not be the same amount of protein percentage in that flour. So you're measuring out your ingredients, you're measuring out your buttermilk. It could be non-fat. So it's more liquidy. And you're like, well, why didn't, I can't see what that says.
15.
Oh, she's telling me I'm going to. Okay, let me hurry up now. Tell me. Let me keep going. So I think it helps to have it in weight. So if you weigh it out, you'll be closer to what that recipe was. All right, so I've got the butter in there. Got some jalapenos. And I use the canned jalapenos too because they have like a pickling kind of aftertaste to them, a little pickling on them because they're in the can. Even though my grandma would tell me the only thing that should come out of a can is paint. But we won't tell her about these jalapenos. We've got the cheese here. I'm gonna put the cheese in there like that. Got everything tossed around. Like that. Yep. Right now we're at the buttermilk. It's cold. I'm gonna measure it out. This is nice buttermilk. Ooh, 15 minutes. I feel the pressure. All right. So we're gonna pour the buttermilk in there like that. Now we're gonna take a spatula or whatever you have. We're gonna mix it in.
So that's going to be another question that I have technique-wise. Can you overmix biscuits?
You can. You don't want to just like beat it like, or knead it like a yeasted dough. I mean, it's a quick bread, so it only needs a light touch. The more you mess around with it, the stiffer it'll be. And it also, while it does have baking powder and baking soda in it to give it a little lift, it's not like yeast, which can take the beating. And so see, that's how that is. Put a little, it's still crumbly, that's fine.
And then while you're doing this, just talk a little bit about the book, the premise for the book, and why you felt it was important for you to write it.
Well, people would always ask me about where I learned to make biscuit. And I just wanted to, if y'all can see that, it's really crumbly like pie dough. I just wanted to tell that story from my perspective as a black baker. And so when it came time to, we'll fake roll it out. When it came time to pick a book, I had a bunch of ideas. Of course, most people have known me for biscuits, so my editor, my agent, my publisher, they were like, you know, let's do a biscuit book. So I said, sure. But I had to be able to tell it from my point of view. You know what I mean? It's as much with my voice, kind of talking about my experiences.
If you think about all the different recipes that are in the book, do you have, like, which ones are kind of near and dear to your heart, or, you know, favorites?
Well, there's a couple of them. I'll explain. I like to fold them like envelopes. Depends on where you're from. And that kind of gives it the layers. You can also cut them like this. You see people do that and stack them on top of each other and achieve those same layers. If you have a rolling pin, that's probably a better process. If not, that's fine. And then you have a biscuit cutter here. I've got two sizes. I brought my fancy ones because I wanted y'all to think I was fancy. They have little fluted edges here. But yeah, so ask your question one more time. I forgot what you said.
I wanted to know about some favorite recipes from the book.
So my absolute favorite one, because my absolute favorite child, don't tell my son, is my daughter. And so she was the one that told me to put chocolate chips in biscuits. And so I have a chocolate chip biscuit recipe in there that's really her idea. Her name is Kamaya. She's amazing. My son, he just eats. But that's probably my favorite one. You know, the fried chicken biscuit, of course, with the lemon pepper seasoning. People like the lemon pepper it's Atlanta. So people always ask me about the lemon pepper seasoning, so I wanted to explain like how he did that. But all of them, I love them all because I did them. But definitely the chocolate chip. I have a recipe in there for apple butter, which is very sentimental to me because Valerie Boyd was a phenomenal author. She was a professor at the MFA program at UGA. She was my mentor when it comes to writing my book. And so I used to make this apple butter that was my granny's recipe, and she would love it so much, I would take it to her house. So in that particular story, I'm talking about her and
that's awesome.
her. So these are the biscuits. I have some that are already prepared. I don't know if they're gonna bring those out so y'all can see them. You see they're kind of thick here. I put them together. If you place them apart like this, they'll cook crispy all the way around the edges. But if you push the biscuits together like that, it'll be soft where the biscuits are touching.
Here, where you've got your leftovers, as somebody who's from the Midwest, like I didn't grow up with biscuit culture, so these little things that I learned about. So you don't want, when you're taking what remains from having, cut them out, how much are you going to be touching touching it again to form it, shape it?
How many times are you going to re-roll it out?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was told you can only do this 3 times at the most. And I just do that because that's what I was told. You can try to do it more than that, but I just, the ancestors know what they was talking about.
Fascinating.
So,
fascinating.
This is my 3rd time here, so I won't do any more than this. So there's a couple of things when people tell you to take a glass cup and cut them, don't do that. What that does is seals the edges around, and that's why they don't puff up like that. Also, thank you, Mary. Also, when if you cut them in squares and they're like, oh, that leaves, you don't have any waste, that's not true either. Because if you cut them in a square and you leave this edge like that, it'll cook like this. And you'll have what we call bookend biscuits. And people will talk about you, not to your face though. And you don't want that either. So you can make a snake. The really cool thing too, is a viral post that people had never seen before. So my great grandma would roll the biscuits into the sheet pan like this, the whole dough, and then do this right here and cook it that way. So you call it like a sheet pan, and you pop the biscuits out, and the kids got the edges because who loves children? Nobody. But that recipe's in my book. But I always thought that was pretty cool. And then no one had ever seen it. I didn't know if that was a North Carolina thing or not. But you literally, so my great uncle would do it. He would make his biscuits like that. And then you would just sit them in the pan like this, pop them out, and then the corners were like spoons. But you can do this with the snake. Y'all have seen this before. and then roll it around the edge. And again, this is for the wayward children.
And then when you were done here, I just wanted to look at the rise in these.
I didn't know if it was hot.
I mean, wow. These have to be like 2 inches high.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I'm going to come around and actually open it up the floor so that you all can ask your questions instead of me keep peppering Erika with questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll come around. Was that one?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. I'm a neighbor in the Old Fourth Ward and love Bomb Biscuit, and we got your cookbook, and I read the cover stories, and now hearing you tell stories, I'd love it if you could share your story of, I think it was a man you dated that didn't...
Say it again.
There was a story that you shared in the beginning of your cookbook. It was one where you were punished in the pantry that you liked.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then the other one where you shared a dating story.
Oh, you want me to tell the
Yeah.
stories? Oh, I love that you read the book. You know what? They wanted me to take the dating story out.
I thought it was great.
Ha! Wonder where he is now, eating terrible. So I'll make this quick. I don't want to get in trouble with my time. Where's my time lady? So yeah, the pantry. So my granny. I can't see that. Oh no. Okay, let me hurry up. My granny, her sister, my great aunt Mabel, who made the best cornbread. She was mean as I don't know it. But like, she lived in the family house. So you know, in the South, you keep the family house that Big Mom and Big Daddy lived in. She got that house because she was the best child, I guess. But she had a pantry, one of those really scary old house pantries. And like when we got in trouble as kids, we had to go in the pantry. But she'd rather go in the pantry to get a beating. But I loved it. Because there was like all this stuff on the shelves with like canned stuff, because they didn't buy anything from the grocery store. It was like beans and all kinds of things. So it was one time I had to stay in there extra longer, and my granny came and said, well, do you learn anything? And I said, well, you got some expired stuff. Because I was reading the dates. I did get a spanking in, but I was reading the dates on the cans and stuff, because it was just, I just felt like I was trapped in a tower and I was the queen and someone was gonna come rescue me, because you know, you're 10, right? But I thought it was amazing, but they found some other punishment for me. Yeah, the other thing was this guy I was dating, because whatever. You know, you were young, he was just dark skin. He was from up north with the timberlands, you know, the talking and all that. So like, I loved it, you know, and it was just like one morning I made this beautiful breakfast, biscuits, obviously. And he just was like eating little stuff, and he just said something like, well, I don't really eat biscuits. And it was just like, wow, what's wrong with you? I mean, of course there were some other things why it didn't work out, but it wasn't gonna work out if he didn't eat biscuits. But you know, he didn't stay, but biscuits have always been there with me. So I'm glad you love that story.
Hey, did one of you guys have a question? Oh, okay.
You are great.
Oh, thank you.
I am laughing to tears.
Thank you.
Have you been approached for a podcast or a show?
They don't want me on TV.
You need one. Oh my God.
They don't want me on TV. Listen, we did High on the Hog. Where's Ty Richards? Is he here yet? We did High on the Hog. I love Steven Satterfield. Have y'all watched that show? It's great. And so we filmed that, and it was funny because Steven, he sat down, he was like, I don't know why I'm interviewing y'all. Y'all should do all the talking. And it was just, that was cut up so much, but listen, I stay right in the kitchen where I belong, because I just be talking. And I don't know if people want to.
Come hang out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if people want to hear what I got to say, because I just be on one. Sometimes I be on one. Yeah, I'm in the church though, so we're gonna be godly today. But yeah, I mean, people have mentioned stuff to me. Don't tell nobody though, because I really don't want to be on TV. It's the people who produce the shows, you know what I mean? It just shouldn't take that long. Like that CBS special that was great. I love Tony, but they got there at 7:30 that morning, and they left at 6:30 that night. And I just kept looking at them like, wow, this is longer than First Sunday on Easter Sunday. you know, and it was starting to come out about 3:30. So, yeah, we'll see.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Do you give cooking class?
Say it again.
Do you give cooking class?
You know I can't hear it. That's another thing. It's a secret. Nobody knows.
The question is whether or not you teach cooking classes.
I don't yet because I work at the restaurant so much. But I'm trying to get away from that. So if you know anybody who wants to take my place there. But I do plan to offer those because so many people ask. But I just be so tired by Monday and Tuesday. I don't want to talk to nobody. But I am going to try to, as soon as I get it, I'm going to post it on there.
Any other questions?
Hi, I got your cookbook because I wanted to learn how to make like the fluffy biscuits, like
Yeah.
the big ones. And so I followed your recipe and it's working. But it's still not perfect. And I just wanted to know if there's like an extra trick to it or things that you see that people do wrong that keep the biscuits from rising just to
Yeah.
be that really big fluffy biscuit.
Well, I guess, how thick do you cut them? I mean, that's one thing. I mean, about half an inch. I mean, and it could be, ovens vary. And then don't say they're not perfect. They're perfect for you. You know what I mean? You just got to keep working on it. It took me a long time to get to that point. And I think once you get like one solid recipe, and you keep kind of doing it over and over, you see different things that didn't work. Like for me, I know at home, I have to cut my biscuits a little thicker because, you know, at the restaurant, I have these huge, very expensive convection ovens that push out 500 degrees like that. But my KitchenAid at home is, 450 and like a little slower. So sometimes, I have to cut them a little thicker to sort of get the same height that I do at the restaurant. But it took me a couple of trial and errors to get to that point. But the baking powder and the baking soda, adding both of those in there gives it huge lift. The angel biscuits too lift very high because they have the yeast in them, but keep working on it. They're gonna be perfect. They're perfect because you're making them. Okay?
I think we have time for one more question if anybody has who? Okay.
Hey, I'm just curious. You've done a lot of different things. And I think a lot of people kind of think, oh, I want to open up a restaurant, as a kind of pre-retirement career or something like that. I'm just curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it to operate a restaurant?
12. If you're an elementary school teacher, and you do it very well, you probably could handle a restaurant and not want to murder anybody. I think it sort of depends on what it's hard, obviously. You don't open a restaurant if you don't know how to do absolutely everything in that restaurant. Like today I had to wash the dishes. I think a lot of times, I grew up in this business. I saw my grandma do absolutely everything in a restaurant, so I knew going into it, I would have to be able to fix the fryer, or, move tables, or, work saute if my line cook calls out, also make biscuits. So it's hard work. It's often unrewarding. I mean, I appreciate all the accolades I'm getting now, but it definitely has to be something that you love to do. I would take that money for retirement and move away. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, it's hard work. It's dealing with people, But yeah, I love it. I wouldn't change my path. Maybe if Denzel asked me to marry him. But I wouldn't change the path I've put myself on for anything, but it is hard work. When people say, oh, I want to open a restaurant, I have a friend that talks to me all the time about opening a restaurant. He's like, oh, I got a grant for 20 grand. He came by the other day and my husband was there. And it was funny because he was like, I got another grant, it's 30 grand. And my husband was like, back up a little bit. He's like, back up a little bit more. He said, look up. It is the hood. That's your 30 grand. You know what I mean? So it's just, yeah. I hope that answered your question. Don't do it, basically.
Well, Erika Council,
Yes.
thank you. It has
Thank
been
y'all
a
so
pleasure.
much. Thank you.
Atlanta is very lucky to have you, and especially the rest of us that you can share all of your knowledge with readers everywhere.
Absolutely.
A couple announcements. First of all, like I mentioned at the outset, Eagle Eye Books is over in the back where you can purchase books. And for author signing, Erica is going to be outside in a tent around the corner. And I did want to make one more announcement. William Disson, those of you who had maybe planned to come to other sessions. He was supposed to be here at our kind of like our midday session. William is a chef from Asheville. It's a farm-to-table restaurant called The Marketplace. Unfortunately, he isn't able to be here because of Hurricane Helene. And so I did want to let y'all know, in case this is something that people ask, how can we help? Numerous Atlanta restaurants. Erica, are you part of this too? I can't remember the huge list of restaurants that participating with the Asheville Hurricane Relief. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Sweet Auburn?
Yeah.
Is that Sweet Auburn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Erica is going to have some stuff there. Anyway, this is taking place
Biscuits, obviously.
on October 7th, which is Monday. It's $50 a head, and it's a buffet-style feast. Numerous Atlanta restaurants are going to be there, and all of the proceeds are benefiting World Central Kitchen, which is up there now mobilized to feed people. So if you'd like to purchase tickets, you can find those on the Sweet Auburn Barbecue website. And if you haven't been to Sweet Auburn, where it's going to be hosted, that's in Ponce Highland area. So just wanted to throw that out for those who are interested in donating for a good cause. So thank you very much, and we're going to take a half-hour break, and then we will be back with, let's see, who do we have next? Susie, I cannot say her last name, Karachi. So thank you very much.
Oh, God, thank you. Oh, okay.